his own body collapsed completely. As Ushio is also a teacher, our protagonist assumes she must also have a modified lineage, although her ability to control water seems almost like magic to him. However, Ushio does not respond to that assumption. Instead, she asks him once more if he is willing to come to an agreement and resolve things peacefully. Hiro refuses again. Ushio attacks immediately. At first the fight is in her favor. She's clearly getting the upper hand, but Hiro quickly turns the tables by coating his glove with thermal venom, causing it to suddenly explode. That small opening gives him the chance he needs, and he quickly follows up with another attack that knocks Ushio to the ground. As Ushio slowly rises, she is left surprised and confused about how Hiro managed to hit her 3 times in a row exactly in the same spot with millimeter-level precision. Then Hiro speaks and says that he is doing all of this for Himagawa. Although they are strangers now, he believes she could become very important to him in the future. That's why he's willing to risk his life completely for that possibility, even if it ends up costing him his life. Ushio hears what Hiro says, and that makes her think he's softened, so she immediately unleashes her modified bloodline, Lash Hell, and attacks him with high-pressure water jets. The attacks come one after another with tremendous force, but Hiro manages to dodge them all. But during the fight, Mei takes a hit, and Hiro worries about her condition. While the fight continues, Imagawa asks Mei if she's okay and questions why she's taking it this far. Mei replies, saying that this is simply her job, and that her main priority at that moment is to get her to safety. She tells Himagawa to stop worrying about them, and to just run away while she still can. However, Himagawa refuses to leave. She isn't the kind of person who runs away when things get dangerous. Instead, she asks Mei how she can help, and while they think it over, both of them notice the syringe with poison lying nearby. Meanwhile, Hiro is getting overpowered by Ushio, out of needles and poison. Without them, he can't fight back well. At the same time, Ushio's constant attacks make it difficult for him to get close enough to confront her directly. In battle, Hiro's mind flicks back to childhood for an instant. He remembers being trained by the Poison Clan chief himself. During that time, they warned him that no one must ever find out about the Poison Clan's modified lineage. If anyone were to discover it for any reason, he had to eliminate them without hesitation. Hiro snaps out of the memory and refocuses on the fight. Just then Himagawa drops onto him, splashing a poison syringe. Stopping him cold again, Hiro reminds her that he's there to rescue her, and tells her once again to run. However, Himagawa refuses and says she's not someone who wants to be rescued like a helpless princess. That's why she's willing to fight and help him in her place. Suddenly, Ushio uses her water tentacles to grab Himagawa and pull her away. She taunts Himagawa for being foolish enough to go down and get involved in the fight. At that moment, Hiro gets to her feet and grips the syringe firmly in her hand. Ushio immediately recognizes what it is and tells her to drop it right now. Hiro drops the syringe to the floor. Instantly, she charges toward Ushio at speed. Running, she eyes it as she runs and realizes it's empty. She realizes Hiro already injected the poison dose by the time she understands. Only then, it's too late. Hiro steps in and drives a poison needle straight into her neck. The attack takes effect instantly and Ushio collapses on the spot. After doing so, Hiro catches Himagawa and holds her in her arms. However, in doing so, she suddenly realizes that her hands are in the forbidden contact zone. That makes her panic, and she quickly looks up at Mei to beg for help. Shortly after, Ushio wakes up and sees Hiro watching her. Hiro calmly explains her water technique to her and mentions that she has read about it many times in the Clan Del Veneno library. Ushio feels confused because she can't understand why he decided not to kill her when he clearly had the opportunity to do so. Then Hiro explains to her that he came there to get Himagawa back, not to kill her. Now that he has already defeated her, he believes that's enough to teach her a lesson and keep her from interfering with him again. As for the other kidnapper, Hiro also decides not to kill him. Instead, he lets him go with a warning. This decision irritates Ushio, and she calls Hiro soft for sparing their lives. He responds by saying that if anyone crosses his path again, they will face his toxin of 1,000 torments, making it clear that he remains dangerous if pushed too far. Then Mei asks Himagawa if she's okay with the way things ended. Himagawa replies that it's no problem for her, because she doesn't intend to let herself be captured again in the first place. After that, she offers to take Hiro and Mei back. Both are left in shock and nearly panic when they realize they will be traveling on Himagawa's shark mascot, Jumski. While returning, sometime later, Himagawa visits Ageja and returns their mother's painting. Both Ageja and their father feel happy and relieved to have it back. At the same time, Himagawa's fan club watches the moment through a camera and gets very sentimental, finding the scene quite moving. Meanwhile, Hiro stands awkwardly in a corner, not knowing what to do. Himagawa calls him over because Ageja wants to thank him in person. Hiro steps forward timidly, and when Ageja thanks him, he begins to feel moved. Himagawa also thanks Hiro for saving her. She admits that when she first heard that he was a master of poison, she assumed he would be cold and ruthless. However, she now realizes that he is different, which makes Hiro blush slightly. Then Mei steps in and tells Hiro that she never had the chance to properly thank him for paying for her brother's treatment. She shows him photos that her brother sent her, which show the progress of his recovery. She expresses how grateful she is for everything Hiro has done. Mei points out that Hiro has had a positive impact on many people's lives, even if he doesn't realize it. She tells him he should accept the praise he's receiving. Hearing all of that makes Hiro very emotional, and he quietly slips away to the bathroom to vent. However, before he can stay there, Himagawa's fan club calls him back to discuss his payment for the job. At that moment, Himagawa intervenes and explains that she doesn't have enough money to pay him for his services. Instead, she says she's willing to offer anything in exchange as compensation. Upon hearing that, Hiro appears visibly nervous. Then Mei steps in and suggests that the three of them should go out to celebrate. Later that same night, Hiro and Himagawa sit together, a little awkwardly, waiting for Mei to arrive. However, Mei deliberately decides not to show up because she wants to leave Hiro's alone with Himagawa and see if some kind of connection or spark can arise between them. She sent Hiro a message telling him that in the end she wouldn't be able to go, and that he'd have to manage on his own. When Hiro reads the message, he almost panics upon realizing that it will be just him and Himagawa for the whole night. Then Himagawa takes Hiro to a shark convention. It's very obvious that this kind of event is not Hiro's style at all, but Himagawa is clearly enjoying it and having a wonderful time. Then they sit for dinner. Mei watches from afar in secret, but she quickly sees Hiro already knows she set it up. Mei remembers that she had earlier told Hiro to simply compliment a girl on what she's wearing, but instead of doing that, Hiro awkwardly comments that Himagawa's necklace looks like an ancient relic. This leaves both Mei and Himagawa completely speechless. Then Hiro tries several different ways to start a conversation with Himagawa, but each attempt fails and becomes more awkward than the last. Mei watches everything unfold and realizes the situation is becoming a total disaster. She decides she has no choice but to step in and help. She connects her phone to a nearby monitor and sends signals to Hiro, guiding him on what to say. She encourages him to break the ice by asking Himagawa about her childhood. The restaurant manager notices what Mei is doing and tells her to stop, but she quickly charms him into staying quiet and letting him continue. Back at the table, Himagawa sees Hiro barely touched his food and asks why. He explains that, since he was trained from a young age to become an expert in poisons, he cannot safely eat food that he hasn't prepared himself. He says he's cooked his own meals and eaten alone since he was a kid. Himagawa says she understands that feeling somewhat, and adds she spent most of her childhood alone, too. She had no family and no friends at the orphanage where she grew up. One day, a wealthy man who was on the brink of death decided to adopt her. However, it wasn't because he truly cared about her, but because he realized he had no one to inherit his fortune and his legacy, and that scared him. For that reason, she ended up inheriting the Himagawa surname and a great fortune. She explains that she could have lived her whole life without ever having to work. However, one day she discovered a large collection of beautiful works of art hidden inside her mansion. When she looked into it further, she discovered that those artworks had been obtained illegally. She ended up returning all the works of art to their rightful owners, and doing so consumed a large part of Himagawa's fortune, leaving her in ruin. Because of that, she now has to work part-time 5 days a week just to be able to survive. After hearing that, Hiro remembers how good it felt when people thanked her before. She realizes that Himagawa has been doing things like that her whole life. That's why she tells her that she's really incredible for everything she's done. Hearing that, Himagawa tears up slightly as she watches him. It's the first time anyone has ever praised her like that. The atmosphere between them grows more serious, and Mei gestures to Hiro, encouraging him to finally ask Himagawa to be his girlfriend. Hiro musters nerve, but instead of asking her out, he asks to be friends. It shocks Himagawa and Mei. Himagawa laughs a little. She really thought he was about to ask her out. Hiro admits that he did want to, but explains that they actually still don't know each other very well. He says he once made a good impression, but has dark parts he's not proud of, and he doesn't want to hide them forever anymore. He looks at her seriously and tells her that he wants her to know who he really is. He tells her that if after that she comes to fully accept him, then he will indeed ask her out properly. He believes that this is the first step toward the kind of marriage and future he wants. Mei watches everything that happens and is left completely speechless by how things turned out. Himagawa understands what Hiro means and agrees that starting out as friends is fine with her. However, she also makes it clear to him that winning her heart will not be easy. They swap numbers and Hiro walks her to the car. Himagawa says he can't eat others' cooking. She hopes that next time he'll cook them lunch. While he's standing there, Mei suddenly appears behind him and tells him that they have assigned a new job as the bodyguard of the only daughter of a powerful CEO. Hiro reacts immediately and jumps back, thinking that accepting that job would feel like he was cheating on Himagawa. Mei corrects him and explains that it doesn't count as cheating because he and Himagawa, or no, are just friends. She also adds that meeting more people, especially different types of girls, will help him gain more experience and better understand relationships. Hiro sees the logic in that, so he ends up accepting. A few days later, Hiro begins his job as a bodyguard and accepts a new mission. His job is to protect Shiori, the CEO's daughter, while also accompanying her to a college party. Although he fully understands that his responsibility is to watch over Shiori at all times and make sure nothing happens to her, he starts to feel a little nervous because this is the first time in his life he's going to a college party. It turns out Shiori is just as socially awkward as Hiro. She has a hard time approaching people, starting conversations, and fitting in with those around her. That's why many of the students at the party begin to think she's strange, which only makes the situation even more awkward for her. The scene then returns to the moment when Hiro was first introduced to Shiori by her uncle, Mitsuhito. He explains that he wants to hire Hiro as Shiori's bodyguard, who is about to start college this spring. However, she believes it would be much better if Hiro did the job discreetly without drawing too much attention, so that no one suspects Shiori is being protected. Then Mitsuhito explains the family situation further. She says that Shiori's father built his huge company from scratch in a single generation, creating a powerful business empire through his own efforts. Unfortunately, he passed away last year after suffering from an illness. However, before he died, he left a will stating that once Shiori was old enough, she would inherit the company and become the next CEO. But that decision has created a conflict within the family. Mitsuhito explains that his older sister, Kyuri, believes the company should belong to her instead. She rejects the will and is doing everything possible to ensure she is the one who inherits control of the company. Mitsuhito admits that she doesn't know exactly what Kyuri is planning, but she has heard disturbing rumors. From what he's found out, she may have hired someone who uses strange and unusual techniques to kill Shiori. Because of that possibility, Mitsuhito says he doesn't want to take even the slightest risk with Shiori's safety. That's why he specifically chose to hire the best member of the Poison Clan, believing that Hiro is the best possible person for the job. Shortly after that, Mei arrives and hands Hiro a fake student ID. She tells him that, from now on, his undercover identity will be Oshima, a regular third-year college student. Hiro accepts this new role without complaining too much and seems perfectly okay with it. Just then, Shiori speaks timidly and says that one thing she's always wanted to experience during her college years is attending a party with alcohol like the other students do. Hiro refuses immediately, saying it's too dangerous, but Shiori stares back with innocent puppy eyes. The moment Hiro sees that expression, all his resistance disappears, and he instantly agrees to let her go. At the drinking party, it's time for everyone to introduce themselves one by one. When it's Shiori's turn, she nervously stands up and introduces herself in a stiff, awkward way. Instead of helping her fit in, that just makes everyone there think she's even stranger than they already thought. Then it's Hiro's turn. He decides this is his chance to prove that even a master of poison can become the life of the party. Wanting to make a strong impression, he introduces himself confidently, and then immediately tries to surprise everyone by drinking 8 glasses of beer at once. Mei watches everything from a distance, and can already tell this is going to end badly. After Hiro finishes drinking the 8 glasses, he compresses the liquid inside his stomach and then forces it back out through his mouth in the shape of a snake, using a trick with a water-absorbing polymer. He thinks this performance will at least earn him some applause or admiration. Instead, everyone who witnesses it is left completely disgusted and unsettled by what they have just seen. Trying to move past that awkward moment, one of the students notices that there's still one last person who hasn't introduced themselves. Then a blonde boy who was sitting quietly in a corner stands up slowly. He introduces himself calmly as Naruko and doesn't say anything more. The student asks him what year he's in and what he's majoring in. But Naruko simply replies that none of that matters. She says all that matters is meeting everyone right then. Then she sits back down, as if nothing happened, and does it with ease. The girls at the party immediately find him attractive and run up to him, asking him for his phone number and trying to get his attention. Seeing this, Hiro realizes there are levels to it. After the party ends, everyone goes home. Hiro reflects on how badly the night went for both of them, so he asks Shiori why she forced herself to go in the first place. He says he understands that she is destined to inherit a company and assumes she wanted to improve her communication skills, but he's still curious to know her real reason. Shiori explains that wanting to go to the party actually had nothing to do with the company. She says that right before her dad died, he told her to stop being shy and live fully because life is much better that way. Then she tells Hiro and Mei that she knows all she has to do is take the first step, and that eventually people will accept her. Even so, she can't help but worry and doubt. Shiori also admits that she never had the chance to ask her father why he chose her to inherit the company. That's why she wants to become stronger, improve as a person, and reach the point where she can laugh at her fear instead of letting it control her. But Hiro quickly gives her a reality check and reminds her that there's still someone out there trying to kill her. Even after saying that, he also tells her that she's free to do whatever she wants, because no matter what happens or how dangerous things get, he will protect her. Upon hearing those words, Shiori blushes immediately, from a distance. Naruko secretly watches the two while a report is given to Fudy. This reveals that he is the assassin Fudy hired to kill Shiori. The next day, Naruko is peacefully enjoying a massage when Fudy suddenly appears and begins scolding him for taking so long to finish getting rid of Shiori. She is clearly frustrated because the task is still unfinished and won't stop complaining to him. Naruko gets irritated by her constant complaints, so he uses his special ability to interrupt her train of thought. Once her mind quiets and she calms down again, he casually tells her that he'll take care of everything personally. Later that afternoon, during class, Mei doesn't understand why Hiro even bothers to pay attention to the lesson, since he's not actually a real student. Hiro simply tells her that he's enjoying the experience because everything about this school life is still completely new to him. Outside the classroom, Naruko can be seen meditating with intense concentration. After a while, she activates her sound technique, which creates a series of high-frequency resonances. The waves spread throughout the area and cause the entire classroom to experience extreme gravity, forcing everyone to lower their heads onto their desks due to the pressure. At the same time, part of the classroom ceiling suddenly collapses and begins to fall directly towards Shiori. Without delay, Hiro injects his upgrade venom, greatly boosting his physical abilities. With his body strengthened, he runs forward and manages to save Shiori at the last second before the debris can crush her. Naruko watches this from outside and is surprised that Hiro was able to protect Shiori even under such terrible and unfavorable conditions. She remembers that just before Hiro sprang into action, he injected himself with some kind of substance that instantly enhanced his body and movements. Naruko concludes that only someone extremely skilled could do something like that so effectively. That's why she believes the only person capable of doing something like that is a master of poison. At the same time, Hiro carefully examines the strange attack that took place in the classroom. After giving it some thought, she concludes that the only kind of person who could carry out an attack like that would be a master of sound. After that, they meet in the hallway, and Hiro informs Shiori that what just happened was clearly an attempt to kill her. Mei hears this and immediately starts to wonder whether they should cancel the camping trip for safety reasons. Hiro says that decision will probably depend on what Mitsuhiko wants, although deep down she assumes he will most likely refuse to let the trip happen after such a dangerous attack. However, to her surprise, when Shiori asks about it, Mitsuhiko actually agrees to let her go. She says she's been looking forward to this camping trip for a long time, so she doesn't want to take that away from her now. But once they leave, what she doesn't realize is that Mitsuhiko is being controlled by this technique. A few moments later, everyone boards the bus and prepares to depart. While they're on the bus, Hiro carefully thinks about the killer targeting Shiori and realizes that if she really wants to solve this problem, she'll have to confront the killer directly instead of just reacting to their attacks. Soon they reach the campsite. As soon as they arrive, Hiro immediately starts trying to impress some of the girls by showing off their cooking skills. Their food and confidence begin to draw a lot of attention from the group. At the same time, Shiori is having trouble meeting anyone or joining conversations at the event, so she starts thinking of a way to draw a little attention. That's when she gets the idea to dress up and perform some cool, fun magic tricks for everyone. Her little performance ends up pleasing the audience, and the students around her begin to enjoy it and pay attention to her. By day's end, Hiro praises Shiori for handling the magic presentation well. Shiori shyly explains that it was just a small skill she picked up from being around her father's business world. But just then, one of the students suddenly speaks up and asks everyone if they've ever heard of the Chladni curse. Nobody gets the story, so he explains it now. She says this used to be a village, and that the local inhabitants made offerings to a nearby deity until World War II. According to legend, once every 2 years, whenever the crops failed, the villagers chose the youngest child in the village and locked them inside a nearby shrine as a sacrifice. She goes on to say that after the war, they abandoned those customs. However, for some unknown reason, a series of natural disasters struck the village. Although nearly 1,000 people once lived there, it wasn't long before every single one of them was wiped out. The group tenses up when they hear the story, but then it turns out it was all just a scary story the student made up on the spot. So everyone relaxes and loosens up again. After that, the girls decide to play a game together and begin to wonder where Naruko is, since no one has seen him for quite a while. Meanwhile, Naruko moves fast, deep through the dark forest. He has already finished setting multiple traps aimed specifically at Shiori, and just from the look on his face, it's obvious he's completely sure he'll emerge victorious.